Hello everyone. In this video lesson I will show you how you can early in the opening you can play anti-Grunfeld move and don't came into the Grunfeld defense with white pieces. This is very interesting. There are many options to play some anti-Grunfeld that you don't allow black to play the main variation, like here when white is playing knight c3, black is playing d5, and this is very famous Grunfeld defense. A lot of chess players they play this, and top level grandmasters in the world and world champions they played this opening usually, and this is very good for black. It's also good for white. This is the main variation, just very popular. But for example here there are many options what white can do to make anti-Grunfeld, but usually black idea is always to play d5, and when white he takes on d5 with the knight. And here I will show you my game, what I played against. I was white, I played against Robulj Nenad. It was a Serbian chess championship under 20 years old in the year 1997 in Mataruska, banja we were playing this. And it was interesting because my opponent he played very good Grunfeld defense, and maybe this was the best opening, favorite opening with black pieces, but he didn't know in this time, he didn't know King Indian defense well, or Benoni or something else, only Grunfeld defense. And on this tournament in the room, a hotel room where we played this tournament, I thought during my preparation what I will do against him, because he's playing only a Grunfeld, and then I find a solution and I was very happy. If in this opening black wants to play d5, I said to myself, why I cannot play d5 with white? And then, yes, of course, why not? And when we played the game, I made this move, and my opponent, he was very surprising after this move. I think it was first time in his life that he saw this move. For him, maybe it was something like new, but I saw some games that somebody before played. But okay, just play this move and then we continue game. It's interesting because after this move black cannot play Grunfeld anymore, because black cannot play d5. Without d5 there is no Grunfeld. He can continue maybe move e5, but then after knight c3, d6, e4, bishop g7, and this is some kind of King Indian. Or black can maybe continue with the move c5, and in this moment after knight c3, d6, e4, bishop g7, this is some kind of Benoni defense. Or maybe just to play bishop g7, and after knight c3, castle e4, d6, knight f3, and if black continue with e5 it will be King Indian. If black continue with c5 it will be Benoni, or maybe Benko gambit. It's depend, maybe later he can sacrifice the pawn on b5, but there is no Grunfeld. And also one maybe the most interesting way for black is some gambit way. Black can do something like Benko gambit, but in a different way. Here, black has choice to play b5. This is also interesting. Black is playing for compensation. If white takes a6, b takes a6, c6, dc6, knight c6, and later black will play bishop a6, and white has pawn more. There are open files, a file, and maybe rook from f8 after the castle will come to b8 and make pressure on the open file, but also white has many options how to play this position, and we can say this position is unclear. We can say that black has compensation and white is also okay, and both sides can play this position. This is interesting way with the pawn sacrifice b5. But okay, my opponent didn't think about this move, and he continued with move c6. I played knight c3, cd5, cd5, and he played queen a5 because he want to put queen there to make a pin. Now my knight cannot jump because it's under the pin, and I cannot play e4. This is important. I wanted to play e4, but now I cannot because black will take. If black continue bishop g7, then I can play e4 because my knight is not under the pin. Then d6, knight f3, castle, bishop e2, and here white is something better. White will make castle, knight d4, h3, bishop e3, something like this. But after queen a5 is different. I played bishop g5, but I will tell you that here it's better to play f3 with idea e4, and after this move just e4, d6, bishop e3, castle, then queen d2, and position is okay. Maybe we can say white is little better. White will develop bishop and knight and make castle, and white has more space. But I didn't play in this position f3. I think f3 is better move. I played bishop g5. This is also interesting because black cannot play knight e4. There is queen d4 to attack the rook and knight, and black continue bishop g7. I played queen d2, put queen between this pin, and here my opponent played d6. But why I said that some moves before f3 was maybe better? Because in this moment black has interesting move. This is b5 with idea to play b4 and maybe to attack pawn on d5. a3 is not possible because b4 doesn't stop, and this move is very good. But my opponent didn't see this move. Here I can continue maybe d6 or something like this, but it was good because he didn't find this way. He played just normal, and situation was like that after e4, a6, f3. It was like that I played in the 6th move f3, e4, and then to develop bishop and queen. This position black played knight d7, and he closed his bishop. Bishop doesn't attack this diagonal, and now white has option knight h3 and knight is going to f2. This is a very famous option in some kind of Pirt's defense or also some Semish variation in King Indian defense when the bishop on c8 is blocked, then knight h3, knight f2. But here also white could play knight e2 with idea knight d4, castle knight d4, knight e5, bishop e2 with idea castle. This is also interesting, but we go back, knight h3, knight c5, and now white is playing rook b1. Why rook b1? Because black has here some threat to go knight b3, and we can see that here is the pin. Pawn cannot take because the rook is handing. Yes, and after rook b1, just white want to play b4. He has to move the queen, queen d8, and now knight is coming to f2. And white made his pieces very good. Castle, bishop e2, b5, b4, knight d7, then castle, knight b6, and in this position I should decide where I want to play. If I want to play, for example, on the queen side, then I have to put this rook to c1, but black will also put bishop d7 and rook c8, and maybe we will change some rooks, but I don't want to change. I want to make some really attack, not to change pieces. Then I decide to play bishop h6 to change this bishop and to try to attack on the king side. He played bishop b7, and here is interesting how it will be after knight c4, bishop c4, b takes c4. After this moves, I can say that this pawn on c4 is weak, and white just need to attack this pawn few times and to win the pawn. Here white can continue bishop g7, king takes, queen d4, attack the pawn, queen c7, rook fc1, bishop d7, knight d1, knight is going to e3, rook c8, knight e3, attack 3 times, and then black has to protect 3 times. But after rook a1, white want to play a4, and then when this bishop move, white will win the pawn and will have pawn more. And in this moment we can say that knight c4 is not a good option because this pawn on c4 will be weak. And my opponent, he played bishop b7. I took bishop g7, king g7, and knight cd1. This knight is going on the better square on e3, from where this knight will take part in some attack on the black king. Here my opponent played knight bd7 with idea to put queen on b6. Maybe we can say that this is some critical moment where black has to find the best way how he will continue this game. But maybe the best way was just to attack in the center, but who knows. I think this is also a little better for white, but black has some possibility in some moment to play d5, and okay, position is not so clear. I think this is maybe the best way for black, but white is still a little better here, and the game can be something else. But he played knight d7, and in this moment I should decide to play on queen side or to play on king side. But I already decided that I want to do on king side. Maybe it's interesting also to attack this pawn, because now white want to take on b5, and if black takes, then knight jump to c4, knight is going to a5, and bishop on b7 is weak. But I was not so happy to play on this side, because I decide just to attack black king, and I played g4, some aggressive move. I want all my pieces to put on the king side to attack black king. My opponent played h6 to stop g5, but I didn't want to play g5, I just wanted to take space and later to try to attack. And here I thought, what I have to do, I have to make my pieces to put on better square. And then this knight on f2, it's okay, but I can put it on better square, on the square g3, and then I can play knight h1, knight g3, and from here maybe some moment, some sacrifice knight f5. And then I played knight h1, queen b6. This queen made some pin that this knight cannot play because of this pin on this diagonal. But knight g3, and now my opponent played rook h8. But what is idea for white? White just wants to play king g2. This is normal, to go away from this diagonal, and then to jump knight to f5. And here it's big problem for black. After taking, take, king goes back, then queen h6, wanted to give checkmate, only move to protect, is knight back, but knight e7 is just checkmate. And because of all this threat, black decide to protect this pawn h6 with his rook h8. And I played h4, and here he played h5. He wanted to block this side. He was afraid that maybe I will play h5 or maybe g5, but h5 maybe is idea for white, and because of this he played h5, and I made block g5. Knight goes to e8. This is a good move, but where to go with knight? It's not so easy. G8 or maybe h7, but then white can easily play king g2 and then f4 and started some attack on this f file. Or maybe white can also play the move like a4 and try to play on this side, but f4 is also f4 with f5. This is very strong. And after g5 my opponent continued knight e8. Knight is not so good on e8, but what to do? The game is going like this. I played rook f2. I block this queen that there is no pin, and in some moment I want to put my rook to f1 and then to start some attack f4, f5, and it can be dangerous for black. He moved king h7 and I played f4. Black is playing queen c7. Black wants to change the queen because we know when somebody doesn't have a lot of space, he needs to change pieces and then to have um, some space. But if there are a lot of pieces and a small space, they cannot play with these pieces good. Yes, queen c3 is a threat. Want to change the queen, but I played bishop d3. I don't want to change. For example, if he played queen c3, I wanted just to move the queen on e2 and to ignore this queen on c3. And here is interesting. If black, for example, play knight g7, I can play interesting strategic maneuver for white. This is with the pawn sacrifice. When black takes, then to play f5. This is very famous. It's calling a parallel blockade. But something more about this I will talk in some another video lesson where I will use some examples about this parallel blockade, but this is good. Now white wants to open f file and there is a square for knight e4 and okay, I will show you next time about this, but just to know some e5 pawn takes and then f5, it's calling parallel blockade. After bishop d3, my opponent didn't play queen c3 because he saw I will move my queen and he played knight g7, and here I played knight e2 and I protect all squares on c file and want to bring my rook to f1 and to open the position on the king side. But also interesting move was e5, like I told before, parallel blockade. Idea for white, if black doesn't play anything, white wants to play e6. And after pawn takes, here is excellent move, bishop takes g6, king g6, pawn takes e6, attack the knight and wants to play queen d3. Queen d3 is the main threat in this position because black king is in dangerous position. And after knight e5, pawn takes, also want to play queen d3, but queen c3, for example, to change the queen. And now knight ef5. White wants to take e7 and then it will not be good for black. After changing and then rook e8, protect this pawn, white changed the queen and now white has excellent move, and this is knight e7, rook e7, rook f6, king g7 and pawn takes pawn. And here doesn't matter, black has to move his rook, but there are two pawns on 6 rank and white is completely winning. Black will give a rook in some moment, but maybe white will also promote the queen. This is very nice variation for white, and we can say after e5, if black takes to e5, then white can play f5, and this is some kind of parallel blockade, what I told just before, because now white want to open f file after queen b6, rook bf1, and here after rook f8, for example. But what's happened if black goes rook g8? Then white can just take here and goes rook f7. Rook is on 7 rank. This is very important. And for one pawn, if we can say black has one pawn, but white has rook on 7 rank, this is just enough and maybe more than compensation for the pawn. If black protect this pawn on e7, white can take knight h5, because we can see there are two kind of pin with bishop from d3 and rook on f7 is making pin. And if black is playing rook f8 to stop something on f file, wants to change rooks, but white can play f6 after pawn takes, knight e8, and then knight ef5 with idea queen comes to h6, and after king g8, then knight jump to e7 and checkmate. This is very nice, and it's good because rook is on f2. It's stopping this pin, and the knight can jump to f5. This is interesting moment, but okay, e5, d takes e5, f5. This is nice to know, but in this time I just played easy. I decide jump with knight, take control of all this square that doesn't give black to do anything, and then I prepare my attack on the king side. I played f5 and I want to play f6, and here my opponent played some move queen b8. Okay, but with this move he didn't do anything, but it was also very hard to decide what to play. Maybe knight e5 was just better, but also not so easy. Here he played queen b8, I played f6, pawn takes, and knight e8. In this moment I calculate some knight sacrifice, and I thought I will win after this sacrifice. I want to play queen h6, but after this I saw he has check, and when I move the king, rook g6, and I thought, okay, but he has this move, and I didn't want to think a lot about this, and I prevent this check and move my king immediately. But here in this position, white is still better, or we can say it's winning after e5. Bishop wants to take g6 and then to play f7, and it's winning for white. I didn't go in deep thinking about this variation, and just I thought, okay, black will play rook g8 check, rook g6, and I wanted first to move my king, and then I will jump with my knight to f5. And my opponent played queen c8 because he wants some moment to come queen h3 maybe. But if he play maybe knight e5, white can play rook g2, and queen c8, white can play knight f5 with idea queen h6, and here white is completely winning. Black has to take the knight and maybe to give the queen for the rook, and this is very bad. And on king h1 my opponent played queen c8, and now I made the first rook c1 attack the queen, and I wanted queen to go back because I didn't like that this queen has solution in some moment, maybe to go to h3 to give me check. And now black has to move the queen, and queen is far away, and in this position white play and win the game. Now is going forcing variation. It's a very nice chess combination, and white is winning because we can say that white has how many attacking pieces? One attacker, another, this, they are all who can attack black king, but black king is in dangerous position, and we can say bishop doesn't do anything, queen is far away, rook is far away. This rook is also not important to defend the black king, but there are maybe, okay, these two knights, they can defend black king, but also we don't forget this rook is also attacking piece because he will come here and to take this file in some moment, and in this moment we can say that white has so many pieces in attack and white can sacrifice something. White is playing knight f5 and sacrifice the knight, but he has a lot of pieces to attack black king. Here black has to take, then rook f5, rook is attacking this pawn and to give some checkmate, then black takes f6, and we said how many pieces white has a lot of attacking pieces, and then white is ready to give up one more piece because he also left enough pieces in the game. And after knight f6, then e5, bishop is open, queen is coming in the game, and maybe rook will come on g1, and then it's very dangerous. Now he played knight e4, but what's happened on king h8, then queen comes here, king g8, rook g1 check. After this, queen h7 is checkmate. And because of this, after this move, my opponent played knight e4, bishop e4, and there are no pieces around black king to protect him. Here en passant, king g8, queen g5, and my opponent resigned because there is checkmate in two moves. And this game is very nice. I think you will like, and you can try if somebody play Grunfeld Defence. You can try in this moment to play third move d5, and this move is interesting, and we can call this move Anti-Grunfeld move in the opening. Just stop black to play Grunfeld Defense. I hope you are liking this video, and see you soon. See you with my next chess lesson. Until this time, bye bye.